This is an old Atheist Experience episode where they debate Matt Slick.
Yeah, I see atheism as being internally inconsistent. I don't think it's rational to hold atheistic viewpoints. I think that once you examine the evidence, that you'll conclude that there must be a God. But, you know, that's me.
How would you define atheism?
The act of denial of God. There's strong atheism, there's weak atheism, there's agnostic atheism.
We would define atheism as the lack of a belief in God.
All right, well, let's tackle lack of belief. I got 4 cats, believe it or not. I have some daughters, and they love cats. We have 4 cats. All of them lack belief in God, so they're all atheists.
Sure. There are several ways which atheists define atheism, and I don't bother trying to say one is correct and all the others are incorrect. Rather, I simply recognize that different people use the term in different ways. One of the ways people use it is simply a lack of belief, although this use of the term atheist often explicitly specifies a person who lacks a belief. Many atheists avoid this definition because it entails that babies are atheists and they see that as silly.
The position that someone lacks belief in God when they say they're atheists really is not much of a position to have.
This is entirely correct. Slick says this as though it's a criticism, but what's wrong with simply not having a position on the existence of a God?
Atheism is an intellectual position.
Atheism is not necessarily an intellectual position. If you define atheism as simply lacking a belief, it's more accurate to call that a doxastic stance rather than an intellectual position.
To say you lack belief in God, this statement unfortunately does not distinguish a human being from a rock out in my backyard. So you need more descriptive definition.
Okay. How about we revise the definition to be...
I don't see why we need to revise
the claims and the evidence of God, and we don't find any merit to it.
Who the fuck is Matt Slick to dictate to atheists how they should define atheism?
Here's the reason why it's... Let me tell you the reason why in my letter to you I said that atheism can't be properly called a worldview. I do think that atheism is this general non-descriptive term, like you called it.
Matt Slick doesn't like these definitions of atheism. He wants atheists to define atheism in the most easily disputable way. He wants atheists to assert a synthetic negative, because synthetic negative statements can't be proven. It's often said that you can't prove a negative at all, but this technically isn't true. Negatives that are true by definition often can be proven. Fermat's last theorem is a negative. It's synthetic negatives, negatives that are not true by definition, which cannot be proven. Simply lacking a belief in a God isn't a position at all, and if it isn't a position, it can't be an incorrect position. It cannot make any false claims because it does not make any claims at all. Apologists hate this, and they will try to dictate to atheists how they ought to define atheism. They'll say, well, that's just agnosticism. Typically, we treat agnosticism as a subcategory of atheism, but let's say that this is correct. Let's say that agnosticism is distinct from atheism rather than a kind of atheism. What's your argument against agnosticism? Does Slick think that agnosticism is unreasonable or inconsistent?
I believe that a person acts according to what they believe, not according to what they don't believe.
Well, that depends on what you mean by act. This seems like it could be a nebulous distinction. If you stop believing in a God and as a result you stop going to church, are you committing an act? Perhaps not, because you are putting in less effort rather than more. But what if you walk to work and you take a longer route because the shorter route is populated by Mormons trying to convert you to Mormonism, and you put in the extra effort to avoid the Mormons because you don't believe in their religion? Are you not acting on what you don't believe?
So if I were to offer you a proof for God's existence, what I would expect from you, being an atheist, is for you to attempt to refute the proof. And even if you could not refute the proof, I do not believe you would accept the proof.
Perhaps that's true of some atheists, but it's not true of me or any intellectually honest atheist. I think this attitude is projection. Slick believes that atheists are as obtuse as he is.
I actually would say that you're wrong. If you came up with an irrefutable proof of God, I think both of us here are essentially skeptics, but open-minded skeptics. And the reason that we don't believe in God at this point is because all the arguments that we've heard for God are pretty bad.
I'm an igtheist, so I would need to hear a coherent definition of a God first. Without that, I wouldn't be able to evaluate any evidence for or against such a being's existence. If I heard such a definition, however, I would be very open-minded to arguments and evidence. In the description there's a link to my Patreon for you generous and kind-hearted folk.